Quantum Break has been a known quantity for a long time now, being in a similar position to The Division, which I recently reviewed by the way. However, unlike The Division, after numerous delays, Quantum Break actually managed to deliver.
What happens to me?
Well, that's entirely up to you.
After playing through the first few moments of Quantum Break, I was frankly intimidated about writing a review for the game. While I was playing, I felt as if I was in completely uncharted territory, but after completing the game and looking back on it, Quantum Break turned out to be a lot more familiar than I initially thought it was. The gameplay in Quantum Break is actually a lot better than I thought it would be based off the trailers shown at previous Microsoft events. Mechanically, it feels a lot like the recent Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is to say that it is very solid. Shooting feels good, it feels responsive, but of course, there's the unique twist within the time manipulation abilities. You get a litany of these abilities during the course of your playthrough, and they're doled out at a reasonable pace. Most impressively, the game doesn't force these abilities upon the player, and what I mean by that is that save for the few minor instances, the game never necessitates that you use a certain ability or tactic to take down a regularly occurring enemy. The abilities feel great, and by the second half of the game when the action really starts to ramp up, I found myself chaining the abilities together back to back effortlessly. The standouts for me were the Quick Dash ability, which lets you dart across the map at breakneck speed, shocking, I know, and then lets you do a max pain bullet time on the nearest enemy. There's also this game's version of grenades, where you freeze time in a small vicinity and then unload your weapon on it to trigger an explosion, which is far more satisfying visually and gameplay-wise than just a normal grenade. The only real negative aspect of the gameplay is the horribly implemented cover system. Rather than having you press a button to stick to cover, or crouching and then walking up to the cover, it's just this weird thing where you walk up to whatever the game considers to be cover and awkwardly caress it. You can't blind fire from cover either. The one saving grace though is that the cover system is all but unnecessary due to your badass Homura Akemi abilities.
HQ, we just heard an explosion near the harvesting perimeter. Can't take a wild guess who that could.
What made Alan Wake so enjoyable for me was not only the gameplay, but the excellent pacing. Thankfully, Remedy continues that tradition here. When you're actually playing the game, it's split up into 3 different types: combat sections, exploration or ambient sections, and very light puzzle or platform sections. Never did an aspect of the gameplay overstay its welcome for me, except for the minor boss battle at the end. And that was just a minor frustration. There's all kinds of documents and notes left around for you to read in the exploration sections, many of which tie into characters that aren't necessarily shown in the game. And to help bolster those few puzzle sections, there's power-ups hidden around that allow you to upgrade your time abilities, some of which are pretty well hidden. Now, all of this could have been completely fucked up by the TV show, which, by some sort of miracle, actually strengthens Quantum Break. Quite boldly, they decided to go all in with this TV show idea. Rather than having it be a prequel or a side story, it is directly embedded inside of the game. This TV show provides more context for the story and world of Quantum Break, and also bridges together the action-packed gameplay segments. And since we're on the topic, let's address the story as well. Without ruining anything for you, Quantum Break is about a time experiment gone wrong that creates a fracture in the space-time continuum, causing time to stutter and eventually come to an end. At the center of this is Jack Joyce, who was at ground zero of the incident, causing him to gain unique abilities and be immune to the time skips. He's thrown into the mix unwillingly and is kind of written like a magical girl who is the only hope for the universe. Don't take that the wrong way though, I'm just trying to be funny, he's fine.
Shut it down, Paul's still in there.
Shut up!
Look
Shut
at me.
up!
Look at me. Put the gun down and we can talk, okay?
No, there's no time.
You're not thinking straight. Put the gun down. Jesus Christ, Will.
Time is going to end. Jack, you have to trust me.
Or what? No, I gotta let you out.
Oh God, no.
The antagonist in this game is the monolithic company called Monarch, whose decorator is the same guy that designed the Op Asimov and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and somehow they've been preparing for 17 years in anticipation of this event. In the game, you play as Jack Joyce, and to tie back into the TV show, in that, we get perspective from inside of Monarch after making an in-game choice that decides the path that the company will take at various junctures. It reminded me of the moments in Daredevil Season 1, where we got to see Kingpin's whole well-maintained operation slowly crumble down around him as he lost control. A few characters solely exist inside the TV show, but have major consequence on what happens in the actual game segments. The TV show itself is shockingly well made, too. I'd say it's almost as well made as some of the series that Netflix have been pumping out, like Daredevil. The acting is solid, there's enjoyable action scenes, and the production value is pretty good, save for a few bad-looking CGI elements. The biggest compliment I can give to the TV show is that I never dreaded watching an episode of it or wanted to skip one. In fact, the timing of when the episodes were shown prevented me from ever becoming fatigued on the game, and I looked forward to seeing what would happen in the next episode. The main theme the narrative focuses on is this very Madoka Magica-esque notion of the past being unchangeable, time being the course of a few days for the viewer, but in the context of the game being far, far longer. There's even an impending doom that everyone but Jack Joyce is convinced is unstoppable. There's characters that go insane trying to go back and fix things to no effect. Unfortunately, Jack Joyce does not become a god and the savior of all magical girls. Sorry for the spoiler. By far, my favorite character was Martin Hatch, who is the menacing Wilson Fisk-esque CEO of Monarch. His motivations are intentionally enigmatic, and his actor Lance Reddick does a fantastic job of portraying his brand of simultaneously laid-back and intense authority. After 3 minutes of listening to his voice, there was something oddly familiar and homely about it, as if I had heard it 1,000 times before. It turns out he also did the voice for Commander Zavala from Destiny, so I actually had heard his voice 1,000 times before, just like home.
The Fallen will continue to claw at the walls of our city unless we strike them down. Beneath the ruins of the Cosmodrome, in the shadow of an old colony ship, we've located the House of Devil's Lair and the High Servitor, feeding them their strength. We must destroy this machine god and send their souls screaming back to hell.
Assuming you've been watching the video, you've no doubt noticed that Quantum Break is quite the visual spectacle. However, it's certainly not the perfectly polished technical showcase that other games like The Order 1886 and Star Wars Battlefront are. During my time playing, I noticed tons of screen tearing, texture pop-in, reflective surfaces not working as they should, and a weird gel-looking outline that was constantly around Jack's character model. Don't get me wrong though, it's a good-looking game, just not the absolute upper echelon best. But unlike a lot of those other technically impressive games, Quantum Break actually has a unique visual flair within its time breaks. There are a ton of beautiful set-piece moments. The bridge level in particular comes to mind. Just look at this, it's crazy. You not only have the neat triangular effect going on, but also this unsettling poltergeist-like effect where the objects twitch back and forth very violently as if they have a mind of their own. Then there's this elevator scene that looks like one of the best scenes from the Madoka Rebellion movie. Way back when the first tech demos were shown off for 8th gen consoles, particle and lighting effects became kind of the de facto impressive feature, but in practice didn't add that much to the overall visual experience. Quantum Break cleverly leveraged those techniques in these time-free sequences. Things like the trail of a gunshot or debris of a car crashing, that would normally be a split-second effect, are put into the forefront, portraying chaotic events in a very picturesque way, kind of like the Judge Dredd remake movie. If you've seen any other videos on my channel, you probably know by now that I prefer to play games on PC, so why didn't I get Quantum Break on PC? Well, in order to play Quantum Break on PC, it requires DirectX 12 and access to the Microsoft Store, which translates to Windows 10 and an online-enabled Microsoft account. the latter of which I'm not too keen on having, and for once in my life, my superstition has actually paid off. Judging by what I've seen online, I dodged a bullet by getting Quantum Break on Xbox One. The PC port seems to be a complete disaster. You've got frame rates all over the place, NVIDIA driver crashes, and worst of all, abysmal performance on the GTX 970, which is an extremely popular card due to its low price point after the whole VRAM debacle. The AMD R9 390, which is a comparable card to the 970, runs around 50% faster, according to Digital Foundry, whose article and video I'll link below. Microsoft's peace offering to PC users has pretty much turned into a giant fuck you, because lest we forget about what happened with Gears of War Ultimate Edition on PC as well. Yeah, sure, Quantum Break might get patched later down the line, and maybe there's a good reason for the poor performance on PC, but at the end of the day, it's irrelevant to us, the consumers. Microsoft is charging full price for a product that is downright broken, something that should not be acceptable. The verdict on Quantum Break for Xbox One is a 7 out of 10. It's a good, enjoyable game that has a unique twist with that integrated TV show. If you're a fan of single-player story games like Uncharted, the Tomb Raider reboot, or especially Remedy's own Alan Wake, then Quantum Break is right up your alley. $60 might be too high a price for a 10-hour-long game though, even more so when you take into account the lack of replayability here. The good news, however, is that Quantum Break is available at around $47, $42 at a lot of retailers, which is what I got it for off of Amazon Prime. That price feels a bit more reasonable for what we're getting here with this game, but my recommendation would be to rent this game. Now, I've literally never rented a game in my entire life. I think red boxes have games I don't really know, I'm sorry, but Quantum Break, from my perspective, would be an excellent game to pick up for the weekend, play through, and return promptly the Monday after. While I enjoyed Quantum Break, I don't necessarily want this to become the future of video games in general. But if it became the future of linear, highly scripted single-player games, I might be okay with that. I'll take the format of Quantum Break over Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, or even The Order 1886 any day. I've seen some call this game Xbox's version of The Order 1886, and I actually recently played The Order, review coming on the way, but the big issue with The Order for me was its illusion of interactivity. Quantum Break doesn't do that to you. You're either playing the game or you're not. No funny business like on-rails shooting sections or boss battles that are actually quick-time events. I'm not going to rant about The Order, I'll save that for the review of The Order, but if you've played Quantum Break, let me know what you thought of it down below, and if you haven't and you have an Xbox One, go rent this game immediately.